This is a historic breakthrough. The Chinese yuan is now the number 2 currency for global oil settlements. For decades, almost all oil trades had to use the US dollar, but now, the dollar's share has fallen below 55%. This isn't just normal market movement. This is the biggest shock to the petrodollar system in over half a century. So, how did the yuan get so big in oil payments? First, let's look at some data that makes the Federal Reserve nervous. Since March 2026, in Middle East China crude trade, yuan settlement has soared to 41%. For the first time ever, the yuan has surpassed other currencies. It's now the second largest settlement currency for global crude. At the same time, the dollar's share in Middle East oil payments dropped to 52%. Just a few years ago, the dollar had an absolute monopoly with over 90%. Yet, the yuan went from 0 to global number 2 in under 8 years. Before 2018, it was almost 0. Before 2024, it was 12 to 15%. By the fourth quarter of 2025, we climbed to about 25%, and in the last 6 months, it jumped again. By March 2026, we hit 41%. This explosive growth caught all the Wall Street banks by surprise. So what caused this huge spike? The yuan's surge comes from 3 major oil producers switching sides. First, Russia. Russia is one of the world's biggest oil producers. It exports about 5 million barrels per day. After Western sanctions, Russia's trade with Asia shot up. The yuan, the ruble, and the Indian rupee became the new hard currencies. In China-Russia crude trade, about 99% is settled in yuan. They've almost completely broken free from the dollar. When Russian oil basically stopped accepting dollars, the dollar's global share instantly lost about 1/10. Next, Iran, which has fully de-dollarized. On January 1st, 2026, Iran officially announced 100% yuan settlement for oil exports to China. Iran was the first Middle Eastern producer to switch entirely to yuan for oil sales to China. Yuan now makes up 82% to 92% of our bilateral trade. Iran has been under sanctions for years. The dollars it earned from oil were often frozen and unusable. Now, with yuan, Iran can buy all sorts of industrial goods without restrictions. But besides Russia and Iran, the biggest fan of the yuan might be Iraq. On February 27, 2026, Iraq's central bank officially allowed the yuan for oil trade settlement. By March 22, over 60% of Iraq's oil exports to China were settled in yuan. It took less than a month to go from policy change to majority share. That speed shocked the world. And the yuan's territory is still expanding. Saudi Aramco, the world's biggest oil company, now uses yuan for 45% of its crude exports to China. At the end of 2025, that number was just 15%. It tripled in just 3 months. Saudi state banks have also announced a full connection to China's CIPS system. They set up a dedicated energy clearing point in Riyadh. There's one more important country we can't ignore: India. India was forced to follow this trend. The US exemption allowing India to buy Russian oil has expired. Russian sellers are now pushing for a more permanent arrangement. They want to use alternative currencies. So, how does it work? Indian refiners deposit Indian rupees into special overseas bank accounts for Russian sellers. That money is then converted into yuan. Since Russian oil doesn't take dollars anymore, if India wants to buy, it has to use yuan. Moving from petrodollar to petro-yuan isn't just a currency swap. It's a transformation of the global order. As a challenger, China has spent 80 years finally prying open the door to dollar hegemony.